when I was 16, I was at a high school party where I chugged a fifth of vodka, 4 beers, 2 glasses of wine, and about 4 wine coolers in about 90 minutes. And my body went into cardiac arrest. My skin was green, purple, and black. And I was greeted by my grandfather, Russell, who passed when I was around 3 years old. When I went into the light with Russell, I was greeted by 7 angels. They were 14 feet tall each, 30-foot being, formed an icosahedron, entered my heart, and brought me back to life. So I got a different soul in my body when I was 16.
What is wrong with your original soul that you'd be getting a new one?
No one's ever asked me that one before.
Mark, again, thank you for being here. And, before we get into your near-death experience and what you've pulled from this, one thing I've noticed is with the episodes that I've had on and paying attention to the audience and how people respond and whatever their beliefs are, it usually is tied to some sort of belief system, right? And not always, but tends to be a heavy belief system towards either if it's God or whatever you want to call it. And then the people that don't believe in it seem to, as soon as religion's brought into it for some reason, because you think that would go hand in hand, people automatically, oh no, this can't be X, Y, Z because of that. So before we even hear your story, I'm just curious, what was or is your belief system in regards to what happens after or religiously for that matter?
Well, there's so many ways to answer that question. So my father was a holy roller, Southern Baptist. So he had the Bible memorized. And when I say he had it memorized, he had every word of that Bible memorized. And so I can quote the Bible pretty good with most people, but my mother raised me, my father did not. And I had very open beliefs, whatever. But I mean, if you ask me what religion do I have now, it's more of the Zen Buddhist, Taoist, the collective, or some along the lines what Native Americans teach. I mean, my own personal belief is that there are 3 groups of people that really got this thing about Earth, God, and us correct. And that would be the Aboriginals, the Native Americans of the Southwest, the Anasazi, the Hopi, and the Polynesian tribes. The remnants would be over in Hawaii, the Hunas.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a great. I have the Tao. I literally keep it as soon as I walk in. So I think I'm not sure. I can't say a person I claim that, but I love what's in it and the teachings. I think it's almost, maybe it's the wrong way of saying, but it feels almost neutral in many senses. And I think I just love that approach. It's very cool to hear. I actually haven't spoke to someone I don't believe that has that approach and belief system. So I love that. But how does this all tie into your experience in regards to what you went through? If you don't mind, starting off with the story about your near death.
Well, sure. But before we get to the near death experience, I think it's important to point out how it happened and why it happened. When I was a child, I was very psychic. I always saw auras and lights around people. I had numerous encounters with angels, other beings. I had encounters with other worlds, time-dimensional travel, ETs, UFOs, all those things. Unfortunately, though, as a child, I was told to shut up. Don't talk about those things. Why do you know that? You shouldn't know that. And of course, my dad, being a holy roller, he'd always told me that I was possessed. And you learn you don't want to feel those things anymore. You don't want to know anymore. You don't want to feel, you're so bombarded with information from the other side. And so by the time I was 13, 14 years old, I was into alcohol and drugs because I didn't want to feel it anymore. And of course, when I was 16, I was at a high school party where I chugged a fifth of vodka, 4 beers, 2 glasses of wine, and about 4 wine coolers in about 90 minutes. And my body went into cardiac arrest. My skin was green, purple, and black. And I was greeted by my grandfather, Russell, who passed when I was around 3 years old. And it's very common that when you have a grandparent who passes when you're young, they kind of become your guide. They kind of look over you and help you progress. And so he informed me that I was going to go home, that I was leaving. And of course, anyone who's had a near-death experience, they tell you that when you first leave your body, it's scary because you're not in the light yet. You just know that your body's down there, and you're trying to call out to all your older classmates who just, a couple hours ago were going chug, 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 and they don't hear anything that you say. And then when I went into the light with Russell, I was greeted by 7 angels. They were 14 feet tall each. They were female in appearance, and they asked, and I always say it was like the city of the clouds and The Empire Strikes Back, and there was a holographic light of my table, my life, like a timeline. We have numerous timelines, parallel lives. And anytime I was angry, resentful, or blamed other people, which is all that we ever do when we're teenagers, they asked, how does that relate to love? And everything in life is your opportunity to express love. Forgiveness means forgiving your love away no matter what happens to you. Now, if you're always getting cars, getting jewelry, if you're always forgetting things, you are forgetting who you really are. Now, then they introduced me to a being that was close to about 30 feet tall. Like the giants, the Bible talks about the giants in those days were the giants. They saw that the wives of men were fair and took them as their own. And the children born of them were men of great renown, great strength. Abu Simbel in Egypt. I've been to Egypt a few times. You go over to Egypt. In Abu Simbel, you see the 40-foot beings. They think Akhenaten was 16 feet tall, and Nefertiti was probably 12 feet tall. These are real life statues of because Egyptian archaeology and artwork was based on how things actually were. They were never representations. They were based on reality. So the interesting this being that was 30 feet tall, male in appearance, had all this love for me, all this knowledge about me. And then that 30-foot being formed an icosahedron, one of the Platonic solids, entered my heart and brought me back to life. So in New Age, New Thought terms, I'm a walk-in. So I got a different soul in my body when I was 16. So the soul that was around from conception to 16 left. Another soul came in that was like a giant. And for the first few nights, my mom looked like she was like this big. Everyone looked like they were like this big. I couldn't figure out where I was at. And it took about 4 or 5 days for me to become Mark, to remember the DNA that I was a high school sophomore at Iowa City West in Iowa City, Iowa.
Wait, can you explain again so when you I guess transitioned, for lack of better terms, what went into your heart?
Another being that was about 30, 40 feet tall, formed into an icosahedron, which is a geometric pattern. It came into my heart and it brought me, Mark, back to life. And
at that point, where were you? You were in a hospital bed, or you were at the party?
No, I was still pretty unconscious on the bathroom floor of the Canterbury Suite, yeah.
So how did you come to this understanding or thought that you got a new soul, as you said? Like, what is that? Like, did someone tell you, or what? Is it just a knowingness? What does that mean?
Because that was the experience. The experience was that because when you're in heaven or this other dimensional reality, you experience several realities at once. Everything is here and now. It's like those images you see. You look at it one way, there's one image. You look at it another way, there's another image. You look at another way, but all of those are just superimposed on top of each other. But depending on what light frequency reflects back to you determines your consciousness. And the more frequency of light that we see, the more higher consciousness that we have. So in heaven, you have this like multidimensional aspect where you're aware that you're aware of what's going on, and you have this telepathic communication going on with these angelic beings, and it's all going on simultaneously. And then the transfer happened. So I was being told, have you ever had a dream, and during the dream you feel like you're both the participant and the observer?
Yeah.
It's like you're seeing the dream from above, but you're also experiencing it. Mm-hmm. That's the same thing when people have near-death experiences. They have this thing where they're observing, but they're also experiencing. And so that's what I experienced. I literally experienced another being come into my body as I walk in.
So, I mean, there's a lot of questions. I do want to, in regards to the new soul coming, is there an understanding as to why you got a new soul? Like what was wrong with your original soul? Why would they do that?
Well, that's a great, no one's ever asked me that one before. But
the hell is no, back, I don't mean to say hell in this conversation, but why has no one asked them, like, what is wrong with your original soul that you'd be getting a new one?
It's part of the life plan. I mean, I think I think that the two souls agreed to it, and it was set up as part of my life plan. But it's to evolve. You get another soul into to evolve to extend the mission of the first soul.
You're like a refurbished iPhone. It's like this one didn't work out.
I joke about this, but I evolved 5 lifetimes with a fifth of vodka. Please don't try this at home. You may not get the same results.
I'm pretty sure I took 13 shots of Captain Morgan when I was like 16 in 30 minutes, and I did not have this experience, but I did not come back with 5 lifetimes of information. I promise you that. I haven't drank Captain Morgan since then. But okay, so I don't understand, but understand what you're saying in regards to the soul transfer. I think that's going to continue on. But in regards to your experience there, because you've called it heaven, but you've called it some other dimension. I think using that transferably, like you're calling it heaven, but maybe it's not as heaven as we know it biblically. It's just a place. There's another dimension.
I'm going to call it heaven. Do I know that 100% sure? Just on my own experience, yeah, that was heaven. But in the same aspect, it would be another dimensional reality because it's not here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
that's wild. Okay. So you were at this place. You're saying you saw your grandfather.
Grandfather, yeah.
And these giant figures and whatnot are entities, if you will. What was it? I know you explained it and you compared it to Star Wars, which I love. But what was the overall feeling, and how long did it feel like you were there?
Just the amount of love that they have for us, no matter what you do, no matter what you don't do, the amount of love that they have for us cannot be put in words. You are loved no matter what you do. You cannot fail at this. There are only actions and consequences. We tend to label everything as right, wrong, good, or bad, but in reality, there are only actions and consequences. But you are loved. You do not need to seek eternal life because that's what you are. You do not need to be forgiven because you've never been condemned, and you do not need to be saved because you've never been lost. You are exactly the way you are because, in a sense, and this is what Native Americans teach, that your life really can't be any other way. And in Christianity, it's Psalm 139:16 says, every day was ordained in your book. Every moment had passed before every moment of my life was written in your book before a single day had passed. And of course, that was popular in the 1600s by John Calvin, and Calvinism eventually went on to Predestined Presbyterians, and they kind of faded away by the mid-1800s.
So there's nothing I can do.
Yes and no. So your life is the way it is because you planned it before you came here. You planned it out this way. You chose your life, your parents, whether you were male or female, your circumstances. But your loving and grace actions cancel out your negative ones. The laws of grace supersede the laws of karma. So you're not always stuck with what you got. But for the most part, our lives are scripted out, are predestined. And people always ask, well, if that's true, why the hell would I suffer so much? Why would I go through all this pain? It's because you wanted someone to forgive. You wanted someone to be forgiven. You wanted to receive forgiveness. But most importantly is that your soul wanted to show the power of love, how powerful love can be. And it's kind of what, Christianity goes on about the crucifixion, that God or Jesus loved so much that he was willing to, place himself on the cross. But a more modern example of that is the lady in Rwanda who had to live in the bathroom of a house for 91 days with seven other people. Her name was Immaculée Bagzia in Rwanda. When the civil war came through in the Congo, they killed her entire family, and she and seven other people had to survive in this bathroom for 91 days. Well, when the conflict was finally over, she was given the opportunity to redeem her family, to kill this guy. They gave her whatever time she needed. They gave her like a baseball bat and something else. And she chose to wholeheartedly, empathetically express forgiveness. I mean, I'm talking real sincere forgiveness. And you want to talk about, that's it. I mean, she did it. She did what all the ancient scriptures say you're supposed to do.
But that's a powerful story of forgiveness that I think that's a different example, but that's a different level of forgiveness that I think we could all learn from. And it's very hard to do, to forgive someone who's done you wrong, especially when it comes to that violence or severity. But I want to go back to the idea of, you're saying you found how we predetermined our life, which I've heard before. I've heard other near-death experiences. It's cool to see the similarities and overlapping of that, but I don't understand why. Like, why, if we knew we were going to experience this, like if we're all knowing or whatever we are at that level as a soul or in this dimension or heaven, whatever you want to call it, what is the point of going down a peg, for lack of better terms, to this human being and experiencing this? Like, what is the purpose of these emotions and learning all these things? Because after we're done with this life, do we advance beyond that?
Well, it depends on what you do here on the planet Earth. I mean, this is a schoolhouse, and the only word that has love in it in the English language is evolve. You're here to evolve. And so why do we do it is because we want the challenge. We want to express the power of love. We want to express the power of forgiveness. We want to, in a sense, be way showers of how to live, to be that example of forgiveness, compassion, and non-judgment. And it's like if one of us is turned on, we automatically light up a million people, or that others. And I mean, it's really an amazing opportunity because nowhere else. It's my understanding that a lot of other universes out there don't have free will. They don't have the capacity where you can literally take that which is unseen and make it seen, that which is unknown and make it known, meaning that you in a body can transform the non-physical and the physical. You can't do that on the other side. It's really amazing to show that your thoughts, your feelings create from the non-physical to the physical.
When you say non-physical to the physical, it could be broken down as simply just an idea. That's a thought. It's non-physical into manifesting an idea into something.
Yep. You can't do that without a body.
Again, but back to the idea that if it's preordained and we know we're going to experience this, what is the point of that? Say, like, for instance, me, whatever I was before this, I'm going to choose this life to be David Ferrugio. I need to experience all these things, but I already know what I'm going to experience because therefore I'm not choosing it as a human because it's going to happen. Where's the lesson in that if we already know I'm going to make these decisions?
Because you forget to remember.
Right, the amnesia aspect.
Right.
Interesting. So, do you know, like, for instance, when you're experienced with this near-death experience and you come back with all this information that you downloaded, from your personal experience, I'm not saying you're saying it's so, but are you certain that this is what happens after we die and this is the purpose and this is why we're here? And all the way down to your bones, is it 100% certain this is the way of what happens after we die?
Yeah, because it's not just me who has said this. There's 98, 99% of people that have near-death experiences have said the same thing. And every now and then you will get someone that said they went to hell in a near-death experience. It's not too often, maybe less than 2%.
Right.
But it's my belief that when that happens is that, on the other side, other dimensional realities, you are experiencing what you think. There's no gap between what you think and what you experience. So if you believe that you are doomed to hell, you might create it. And the other example that I would say is that this seems to only happen with people that take their own lives. They experience this thing called a frozen tundra, just like a frozen oblivion. And that only happens, I think, in the cases where people either commit suicide and they fail and they come back. So, but 98% of people have 98% of the people have near-death experiences, have the love, the light, the understanding that everything is agreed to. We tend to incarnate with about 20 or 30 other people. That is our soul family. And, we play the same lessons back and forth. I kill you, you kill me. We go back and forth until we heal. The only thing that we need to heal, David, is the illusion. And it is an illusion that we're separate from God. Whatever God means to you.
What does God mean to you? Is it a being? Is it the universe? Is it energy? What does God mean to you? What is God?
So God is like source energy. It is the thing that set all this into motion. And God incarnated into all of us individuals, because this is how God experiences life, is through you and I, because it wanted as many possible perceptions of reality that it could have, so that it would be all knowing, all encompassing, all compassionate. So it perceives life from many facets of reality.
So when you had your experience, was it like you just got downloaded all this information, all of a sudden you just knew it? Like almost like the Matrix?
Yeah, I got downloaded, but I really didn't know what to do with it, because I didn't tell anyone. I didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about it to anyone. I think I told 2 people, the girl that I was dating at the time and my best friend Dean, who's still in Iowa. And then I got the phone call at 1:30 in the morning from a woman I never met, never spoke with before. I really don't know how she got my number. And, she described my near-death experience verbatim, told me the same things that the angels did. And I used to dream over and over again as a child that everything I ever wanted was inside my bedroom closet. Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, feeling love, feeling like I was wanted, I belonged, was inside my bedroom closet. Well, 40-some years later, you realize that the dream about being inside the bedroom closet was that everything that we want is already within our hearts, the closet of our own hearts.
So when you went to the other side and what you know about it now, I don't know if this is a simple way to answer this, but if we were to logistically break down why we're here, where we were, where we're going, and what this is all about, how does it all start? And how does it all end? And maybe end is, I don't mean ending because if everything's eternal and I guess it doesn't end, but how does, say, if we are souls and we start at a beginning point, where do we even come from? How are we birthed as a soul? And then even before that, like that's another question I'm going to get to, but what is the process of how do our souls start? What is this reincarnation process? And then when we're done with that, what are we doing?
Well, if we knew what we were doing, we probably wouldn't be in bodies right now. But So you have to think of terms of everything as energy, right? Energy continues to multiply, expand, right? So you have God, and then God splits off and splits off and splits off. It keeps fragmenting. Then if you want to get into the story of the fallen angel, then that becomes an aspect of God, wanting to perceive itself as separate from itself. Then, so that would be the Lucifer's, the fallen angel, that it kept dividing and dividing, and it says like, oh, what would it be like if I was separate from myself? And then you have the 10,000 dominions. Then you have and then we start incarnating on Earth because we wanted to have these experiences, these opportunities to be separate from God and what it would be like, and to give God, the source energy, different perspectives from all these multi-dimensional realities. So again, love, evolve. We are here to evolve. And as we evolve, we don't generate the same experiences over and over again. So where are we going? We seem to be going towards this mass collective of what people call ascension, although we're shifting from higher dimension, from 3D consciousness to 5th dimensional consciousness, which has never been done before. And we literally have millions and millions of beings who are lined up to incarnate on Earth right now, because what's going to happen as this switch gets activated, as we collapse the matrix, we collapse the illusion of fear control, that we we become into these expanded beings, that will be a catalyst, like a dominion, like a domino, or simultaneously thousands of other realities will also experience unity consciousness, and we'll get out of good, bad, indifferent, right or wrong, and things like that. So that's where we are going, and to show that it's not about living in peace, it's about living in harmony.
That's very, I'm like, my brain is like twisting into scrambled eggs trying to understand that as a simple mortal. But beyond, like, what is it? Does this end? We just continue on and it's just, we do something in those fifth dimension, state, whatever it is. This never ends.
Well, yeah, I mean, it continues until you evolve to a place where the only reason why you'd incarnate would be to be of greater service to humanity. A lot of people will talk about, their last lifetime, but, this is real. Earth is really an amazing opportunity because you get to experience different realities. You get to transform the non-physical into the physical. And, it's really it can be an amazing place, if we allow. I said for years that I don't think life was ever meant to be a struggle. Rather, we struggle with who we really are. We resist who we really are. And it's the resistance that causes the challenges in our life.
So by resisting who we really are, we're creating the bad in the world? Is that what you're saying?
Resistance to who we are creates fear. It creates the fear that we are separate from Source. And it is the fear that we're separate from Source that leads to what you'd call injustices and things like that in the world. Because if you knew that you were one with God, we wouldn't react out of fear.
So then what's the point of all the bad stuff? Why are there such bad things in the world? Why is there such violence? Why are we so divided? Why is all this divisiveness and quote unquote evil happening in the world? Do you feel like you know why?
Yeah, it's like I said before, it's because you wanted someone to forgive. You wanted to demonstrate the power of love, and that you had the Immaculée in Rwanda is absolutely the best example of the power of love and what an individual can do.
Right, but what about the other side, the people that don't choose that? Why are they choosing the opposite?
Because they don't know any better.
Okay, so once they continue to do that, they're coming back to try to flip the script?
That's right, until you figure out love, compassion, non-judgment, and forgiveness.
We've been here for so long, and it seems like the world has not made any progress towards that love side. So at what point do we collectively find that peace or harmony?
I believe it's underway right now. I mean, and I'll give you an example of that is like over in Russia, you see the war with Russia and Ukraine. Never before have thousands upon thousands. They estimate just thousands and thousands of Russian soldiers are just defecting, saying we don't want to participate in war anymore.
Wow. And this, that's a good point, actually. I guess if you have those in waves, that's some shift towards the right direction. But even beyond just 1-2 countries battle right now, there's so much more that's happening. So like from the eyes of someone who's, been on the earth for 34 years and knows a little bit about history, not much, but it just seems like it continually repeats itself without progress. But I guess there's little wins here and there like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about conflicts in the world, you look at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That's been going on for 30 or 40,000 years. That goes back to the Anunnaki, the brothers Anil and Anis. The Anunnaki wanted to use humans to slave gold for their energy. And so the one group wanted the humans to remain as slaves. The other group wanted to end slavery, it's a vicious cycle that's been going on. The planet's much older than we know. I mean, they just keep finding more and more things that clearly show that we are much older. The planet has been around forever. Gobi Temple outside of Turkey just blew history out of the water. Showing that the monuments there are 12,000 years old. And the more and more we get, the more and more we realize that, there ain't nothing new under the sun. It's all been done before.
It's all been done before, and we continually learn that as we discover new things, I suppose. So what is? I mean, it might be a summarization of everything you just said, but from that experience, what changed the most, or what is your life motto in regards to taking what you witnessed and downloaded from the other side, quote unquote, to living your life today?
Well, it's connectiveness. We're all, the guy that just won the Nobel Prize was for entanglement theory, showing that everything is connected. There's no separation from us, the planet, the stars. What you do affects universes light years away. Everything is interactive, everything is connected. And it just, my hope is that at some time, that we start teaching kids at a young age that we're all one, that everything is connected to each other, and that everyone is us, that there's this collective consciousness. I'm not talking about, like Borg, I'm just talking about that we are all connected. We're connected to everything, and that everything is based in energy. And that if we got that, we wouldn't, if you don't view something as separate from you, you're probably not going to harm it or try to destroy it.
100%. I mean, this goes scientifically. That goes to the quantum field, right?
Right.
Entanglement and what you're talking about. Scientifically, we are all connected.
We're all
and it makes
connected,
sense when it comes to the violence in the world and there's wars. It seems like people are taught that person is different than us. That person is separate from us. Therefore, you feel less towards maybe going through with such a violent act. But if you know they're similar to you and they are connected to you, you're less likely to hurt that person, I suppose. Oh man! So let me ask you in regard, because you're talking about, and obviously I guess the spirit world, and I think the quantum field all kind of relates to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is your belief when it comes to people talk about manifesting, when they think about your thoughts and your feeling and manifesting certain things happening in your life? Like, I manifested this job, I manifested this person in my life. Is that the right terminology, and is that real?
Yeah, the proper word though is allow. What are you allowing versus what are you resisting? Are you allowing it to flow through you? Are you allowing the universe, the one song? Do you surrender to that one song? Do you surrender? But we view surrendering as weakness, but surrendering as strength. And are you allowing the universe to flow through you, or are you resisting its current?
And how do you surrender? Like, let me give you a selfish, specific example. Like, when it comes to this podcast, for example, and I've been growing this for a few years, and it's made some great leaps, and it's at a great place right now. But in my head, in my ambitious goals, I really want to get it to quote unquote the next level. Is there a sense of, is there possibly a certain resistance for me to reach that quote unquote next level? And what would that resistance be? Would that resistance be my doubts and that voice inside my head? And what is that veil to break and surrender to?
So, you very well could be doubting it, or you very well could be trying too hard at it. That if you have your water's flowing from a tap, you ever tried to grab on it so tightly, what happens?
Yeah, stops flowing.
The water makes a mess. It goes all over the place.
Oh, for some reason I saw you squeezing a hose. Sorry.
Squeeze it. Yeah. Or if you relax your grip a little bit and allow it, then it flows easier. But a lot of times people can be afraid of success even more than they are afraid of failure. And so you might have a pattern or resistance around, am I really ready for that? Am I really ready to be in front of millions of people? Or the saying is, be careful of what you wish for.
So for anyone that's resisting anything, whether it be maybe in the theme of this podcast, if you're grieving or going through something, what is that? Is there a simple way of putting that surrendering process of letting something go and just letting things, let the water flow, as you said? Is there a conversation you have? You breathe? Like, what is that practice to make that resistance go away for whatever?
Yeah, in general, meditation is one of the biggest keys to the path of least resistance. But also the saying is, you cannot change what you don't recognize. A lot of times our habits or resistance come from other lifetimes, and things like past life regression are very helpful, which is what I've done for 30 years now. With past life regression, people can unlock and release blocks that were things that were holding them back, because it's a subconscious energetic program. But just saying thank you, that really opens Gratitude is what really opens the possibilities. It's the book of Timothy talks about, God's will for us is to give thanks for all things. And I think it's right there that it's about gratitude. And, even with people that you don't like, if you start thanking them and blessing them, that's, you're shifting so that you're in control, not them. Because if you're always, upset with someone or angry at someone, they're in power. You're not. So if you start thanking them and praising them and blessing them, the power comes back to you, and you're back in your power, and they're not living in your head rent free, as the saying goes around.
That makes sense. Okay, so as a very specific practice in regards to meditating, is it important to focus on whatever you feel you're resisting, or literally just show gratitude in a general way?
I think the showing gratitude in a general way is the key.
I like that. Okay, I always like the specifics of that, because I feel like when people meditate, even myself, it's like, what am I thinking? What do I say? And I think it's just the present. For me, it's just sometimes just the breath goes a long way. Just literally focusing on my breath, maybe not focusing on a specific problem.
Just focusing on your breath for about 10, 15 minutes a day will greatly change your life.
I appreciate this, Mark. I do want to ask you, what's your opinion on people that literally just don't believe in near-death experiences and say whatever happens after this is completely impossible?
It's their choice. The reality is that thousands and thousands, 97, 98% of people who have near-death experience tell the same story. There's no way we're all making this up. I'll just give you an example. I've spoken at conferences and expos all over the world from 97 to 2017. And I went on one time before Dolores Cannon. She passed away about 10 years ago, well known in this field. And after I talked, I had this guy come up to me. He goes, "Mark, all this stuff is crap. It's bullshit. But I want to talk to you, Mark." "I'm sure you do, great, So I looked at him, I said, "There's a gentleman who's older than you. I'm guessing he's your father. He's standing there with a wooden airplane. He's pointing to the wooden airplane, and he's pointing to you." Well, David, that guy dropped to his knees and wailed like a 5-year-old girl. I mean, just tears shot out of his eye. He finally collected himself and got up and said, yeah, when he was 7 years old, he built a wooden airplane. He built the wooden airplane for his dad. He then took the wooden airplane and put it on a seat in the living room. Then he went to the kitchen to get something to eat. Well, he forgot that he put that wooden airplane on the seat. So he sat on the wooden airplane, he broke it. He was never able to give the wooden airplane to his dad, so he had to throw it away. Well, his dad came through to let him know that he, in fact, got that wooden airplane. I cannot make that up. I can't. So it's important to know that when people do cross over, they want completion just as much as we want completion. They say this over and over again with someone like James Prague or James John Prague or John Edwards. And I do more intuitive counseling than actual mediumship. Those are just things that come through sometimes. Completion is so important, and that's why it's so important to learn to forgive, including forgiveness of yourself, because we're so, a lot of times we'll go, God, just show me what I need to do. More often than not, David, is what do I need to stop doing?
Yeah.
That's the real answer, is what do I need to stop doing?
That seems to be it. Yeah. It's to stop doing. I feel like the things we need to stop doing, we usually know too, and then we're just kind of stuck in that loop for whatever reason that may be.
Absolutely.
Oh man. Okay. Mark, this is so fascinating to me. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me and share your story. You're such like a chill guy. It makes me very relaxed, even from the first moment, even though we had some technical difficulties. I appreciate you sharing this. And if there's anything you feel like you didn't get off your chest or anything you want to say to my audience before we get out of here, please feel free to drop the mic if you will, but plug yourself, don't plug yourself, last words, whatever you want.
Yeah, I just cannot emphasize enough at how much you're loved. You're loved no matter what you do. You're born to win, conditioned to lose. You're winners, not sinners. The whole idea of sin is so misused. You're not guilty. You're not guilty for just being born. I mean, this is ridiculous. But I'm really excited about a lot of things going on the planet right now, things behind the scenes that we don't know about, that we're not being told about. It's just we are evolving at a really amazing rate. Beautiful things are happening. And I am just now creating these things. They should be out in the next few weeks. They're called Mark Patterson's Universal Power Cards. They're about personal empowerment, $25, and they should be ready as a digital download with a reflection guidebook in a little bit here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. They're powerful. And my website is mark-patterson, patterson.com. That's mark-patterson.com. If you don't include the dash, you're going to get a famous jeweler out of New York City. So going to have the dash in there. And I'd love to hear from you. If I can help you out in any way, I do a lot of sessions and consultations via Zoom. So I'm definitely here to be of greater service.
I appreciate
David,
that. I'm gonna plug. I'll plug your information below. We're talking about $25. I'm gonna check it out. We're not selling Cadillacs. So I appreciate it. We'll put his information in the show description as usual. Mark, I really appreciate you taking the time, and for anyone listening, we'll love your thoughts on this episode as usual. Add in the comment section, social media, ask us questions, and maybe we'll pass it off to Mark as well. And that's about it. So again, Mark, you're the man. Very nice to meet you. And another episode of Dead Talks in the books. Until next time, we'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell. That'll give you updates as to when we post a new video, more episodes, and more content in general. We are streaming on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all that. And also find us on Instagram at Dead Talks Podcast or www.deadtalks.net. Thank you so much.